You're listening to Backlog Banter with your host, Serial K86.
Hello, greetings, and welcome to a spooky edition of the BB Podcast. I am your host, Serial K, and as of the time of this recording, it is Halloween, the spookiest day of the year. So,
yeah, it is.
Yep. Joining me for this one is Gumshoe Gamer, and we were originally gonna have a second guest, but due to some times mixed up and stuff like that, he couldn't make it, unfortunately. So it's gonna be just you and me, man.
Man, probably out actually doing something for Halloween. Wow.
Yeah, probably. It's supposed to be what's this time now? It's almost 9 p.m. in London right now. So yeah, probably.
Man, people have lives. Who knew? Not me. Anyway, what are we doing here?
Yeah. So, like usual, we're gonna talk about the games we've played from our backlogs. But, as it's Halloween, that's most likely gonna be games that are, horror, spooky stuff like that. It's supposed to be themed this time. It's a coincidence, by the way. We didn't. I planned on on playing the game, suitable for this theme. But it turns out you're also kind of played a few games that are like, suitable for this time of the year.
I mean, I would definitely say so. These just kind of got the general atmosphere of it too. But I'll get into those, and yes, those. Don't worry, I'm not gonna be spending a lot of time per game because they're very, very short. But yeah.
Yeah. So before we get into our game, our games that we picked for this episode, just to and briefly, very quickly, what kind of activity, what kind of stuff did you do for this during this month in October?
I have I guess I can call it a tradition. So this is the third year that I've actually done it. But every October, I always rewatch Hellsing Ultimate. It's just like, to me, it's like one of the perfect animes you could ever watch for Halloween. If you don't mind blood and stuff, then yep, definitely can't recommend that. Can't recommend that more than enough. I also actually not reread, because I finished up reading a big portion of the manga, since I do have the deluxe chapter 1 of it, which is nice. Very nice thing. Eventually I'll get volume 2 and 3, but yeah, I just really like Hellsing, so it just kind of became like something that, okay, every October I'll sit down and watch the 10 episode OVAs, and yeah, they're really great. It's like high quality stuff.
Oh, okay. It's not on my end, it's not Halloween related, but it's just by sheer coincidence. I started watching Cowboy Bebop. I'm only
Nice.
Yeah, I know, a little late to the party, but it's the first time I started watching it. But I'm 7 episodes in, and so far I'm digging it. I really liking it. I'm really liking it. I can't believe it's an anime from the from the 90s, but it's really high quality stuff. I'm watching it dubbed so I can hear Steve Blum's amazing performance.
Once you finish the anime, definitely watch the film. The film doesn't have like a lot of. It's not like a sudden like, oh man, it changes everything sort of film. It's just like kind of a standard anime film. In terms of like, if we're comparing it to other like you have your anime and then you have your film that's based off like that. It's pretty standard from what you can expect from those types of films, but it is like probably one of the best things ever, and also has one of the best like beginning scenes ever.
Oh.
So yeah, the film is really good, and it takes place in between certain episodes of the show. So it's not like an epilogue or anything. It's just like it's kind of just like a extra arc that's just kind of in between events.
Oh, I see. I wasn't gonna plan on watching it, but now that you said it, yeah.
I highly recommend it. It's very good. Plus, they also get a bigger budget because it's the film, so they use that bigger budget.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, on my end, yeah, like I said, aside from the game I picked that I'm gonna talk about, there's not much really anything Halloween related that I did during this month.
If you pardon the pun, Halloween was kind of dead this year for me.
How's and why is that? Without going.
It was just like, didn't really get a lot of celebrations or anything that much this year. I think just everyone around me was just kind of just tired. Just kind of just tired. After what feels like 5 years of living condensed in 2 years.
Mhm.
This is the Halloween where we just stay up all night and relax.
Ah, I see. So.
But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess we should move on to our picks, for our game picks for this episode. Yeah, let's start with you. What before we get to your picks, just wanted to let you know the games you have picked, they originally came out this year, but since they are remasters of old games, I've given you an exception to talk about them. Yeah.
Listen, it was either going to be this or like a visual novel which is totally not made for Halloween whatsoever. So I'm like, hey, can you let me talk about this, since this was at least somewhat a little bit like appropriate for the time. But yes, so I, like some people, other people, I probably finally got around to playing those GBA Castlevania games, the trilogy, if you would, even though there's really nothing connecting the games besides just the name. They all got re-released along with Castlevania Dracula X. We're not going to talk about that one because that one is a terrible game, and I'm going to pretend it doesn't exist. But you have these three Metroidvanias that were all released on the GBA literally a year after each other, which coincidentally is as long as the GBA's lifespan, because literally the DS came out 2004, maybe 2003. It was 2003 or 2004. So then DS came out. Yeah, the GBA only lasted for 3 years, in case anyone kind of forget. It had a really short. Well, I say it had a short lifespan, but the DS having that, being able to play GBA games, I think just kind of helped the production of that still be there. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. Point is, I was playing through the these Castlevania games, and I'm going to just briefly talk about each of them because they are really short. In fact, Circle of the Moon, the first one, I beat that in like 2 sessions, and I should stress they weren't long sessions. I only played, I think I beat it first time in 6 hours, which is very short for a first time like playthrough of a Metroidvania. Like, sure, Metroidvanias can be speed run or however you would want to say, but that's usually, once you play through the game one time, then you can kind of know like where to go and everything. Yeah, Circle of the Moon was just like super fast. The other games, Harmony and Aria, took me a little bit longer, because of other reasons that I'll get into. But yeah, so I want to talk about the Castlevania games. These were all pretty good in their own rights.
Cool. So, you know what? Now I'm gonna let you talk. So, actually, no. Let me ask you. Are they are these games linear, or are they Metroidvanias like the?
They are Metroidvanias. All three of these are Metroidvanias. Though they approach the Metroidvanias like the way of how each one is very different. So keep in mind, before this, we had Symphony of the Night. And if you don't know Castlevania, you probably at least know Symphony of the Night. It was pretty revolutionary. Helped with the whole Metroidvania thing, because we had that at the same time we got Super Metroid. So yeah, super influential. Okay, so we have this huge influential thing that was on PlayStation 1, right? Now we're going to try to make another one of those games, but for GBA, what do? Well, we have 3 games here, and each of them do something a little bit different. For the first game, Circle of the Moon, they just say, okay, listen, we're gonna make it very stripped down. No more extra weapons, no like extra like getting like spells or anything. Like, no, we're just gonna make it simple. You have a whip, you have your ability, you get abilities, but not like a lot of abilities. They're like 6 abilities. That you end up getting like a double jump and being able to kind of like jump through not jump through walls, but like jump off of walls and like a slide and that sort of stuff. Just they'll be your basic movement upgrades, but that's pretty much it. And you have a whip throughout the entire thing. What I also mean by simple is that it's also the most linear, as in I never got lost in Circle of the Moon because it was just like, oh, I'm done with this area. Okay, no, go to the next area. It's very, very plain on like where they need you to go, which is pretty great, all things considered. But to spice things up, they introduced this dumbass card system where like we're gonna have special abilities and also technically extra weapons, but you have to kill an enemy, and every time you kill an enemy, specific enemy, they have a chance to drop a card. You need 2 cards that match up in order to activate this thing that will use your mana bar, and it's like 5 extra steps for something that should just be super easy. And thankfully though, there's an exploit where you can technically use any card in any order if you just pause at the right time and then you select your cards and then boom, you just have it, which is just like, that's how I had to get through the game, because this game is also kind of has some of that old school Castlevania difficulty, especially with the bosses. I'm not gonna lie about that. I'm only gonna mention one because that it would be forever, but there's this double dragon, like undead dragon thing that takes up the entire screen. Okay. Like literal, or it's bigger than any of them. Oh,
hold on. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have an update. DarkSparkish is joining us for this call.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry about my shitty microphone. Yes, hello. Sorry about my shitty microphone. It's from my laptop. I don't have my Blue Yeti. But anyway, so Gumshoe Gamer, you can resume talk about whatever you were talking about. Was something about Castlevania, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. You might want to adjust your volume, the volume of your mic, Dark.
Of course.
It's a little too high.
Is this better?
Yeah, it's a little better now. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna let the Gumshoe finish talking about his games, and then we're gonna go next. We're gonna let you talk about your game picks, Dark. But go ahead, Gumshoe.
All right, so the undead double dragon, which takes up this entire huge room, and you're playing on GBA, so it's got that GBA screen crunch, and it likes to move erratically, and since you have a whip, you can really only attack in one horizontal way. You do have sub weapons, but sub weapons don't really help that much when you can't really see, and you kind of start throwing axes and hoping for the best. And yeah, it sucks. So Circle of the Moon, while playing it, especially like early on, like the first couple hours when I was playing through it, I was like, this is actually a pretty fun game. And then the later half just gets completely like way too hard, way too fast, and there's a lot of just like really cheap enemy placement for no good reason. And it's just like, I'm not having fun anymore. I just want this to stop.
And you did this in 2 sessions?
Yeah, I did it in 2 sessions because like I beat it in under 6 hours. It's not a long game. All these are not long games. I should stress that. Unless you're going for 100% in like Harmony, and especially Aria. Aria can be a long game if you're really wanting to do every single thing, but you don't need to.
Gotcha.
But yeah, Circle of the Moon's definitely the like most straightforward, simple Metroidvania from the GBA, but it has just a lot of just really cheap stuff about it that I don't think makes the experience that great. It's definitely the weakest out of all of them, which kind of sucks because the sprite work is pretty good in this game. This is before they had to like saturate all the colors, because that was a thing for the GBA at the time. You didn't have you had the darker screen, you didn't have it backlit, so to compensate they would make it to where everything was more saturated. They didn't do that for this game, which meant on original hardware you couldn't see anything. But now that we're playing, we have these brand new versions that are remastered. It looks great. It looks like just Castlevania. It looks fine. So it's definitely the game out of all those that looks the best in a technical sense.
Yeah, Donkey Kong Country GBA moment right there.
Oh yeah. Oh boy. And it's immediately noticeable because the moment you get into Harmony of Dissonance, it is literally night and day. It's like, okay, we're working with the GBA and we gotta make like this thing bright. Harmony of Dissonance is like completely the opposite of Circle of the Moon, and I kind of like it for that. I consider it to be the best, which is weird because most people would say Aria is the best. I just think Harmony has all of the positives of Circle of the Moon, minus the kind of color palette, because there's a little too much washed out and white. This is like, the game's very white. Like you just like you're stepping on marble, like styrofoam. Sometimes it's like that white. It just kind of blinds you a bit on modern like monitors. But in terms of everything else, Harmony does a lot for the Metroidvania aspect, and also is still pretty straightforward too. So you're never 100% lost, except when it comes to backtracking. Backtracking is a nightmare in that game. That's like the one asterisk that I just can't for the life of me get like. I wish I could praise this game more, but it's just the backtracking is so bad in Harmony, because not only do you have to backtrack multiple times, you go through 2 castles, but the way you go through them is by they have the same layout, but you kind of teleport through different. It's like they're on 2 planes of existence. So you use these teleporters that are in fixed locations to go back and forth, and because that, so you'll find like, oh, there's a hidden room that I haven't gone through. All right, I'm gonna go through this area, and then you realize, oh wait, I gotta go all the way back to a previous area, so then I can switch back to go to the B castle and then come back through that area that I just explored to get all the new stuff. And and you can see where that might just kind of be infuriating at times.
Oh, but have you gotten lost in during that game? Have you felt lost? You know.
That one is the one that I felt the most lost, because just with the two castles, it's very easy to be like, am I at the right area with the right castle at this point, or am I supposed to be on the opposite side? That one could be pretty confusing, especially since you need key items to like progress kind of further, and there was a moment where I didn't realize I needed to equip a ring, so it let me into a certain room, so then I could actually have access to go to the so swap between castles easier. So yeah, it was like a good 2 hours I spent just roaming around wondering what the heck am I supposed to do.
Oh, I see.
But yeah, Harmony's great though. Honestly though, like just despite that, now that I know like what to do, it is the one that I replayed immediately after. And on my revisit, I just was like, yeah, this is fine. And I didn't really have like any other problems with it. Plus you play as the Belmont, too. Just Belmont or just the Belmont. I don't know. It's French. It's some French name. And
Oh, come on.
yeah. The funny thing is, all these Castlevania games, they actually take place in their own kind of universes and timelines.
Yeah,
It's really
that's
bizarre.
true.
Yeah, there's no, because Circle of the Moon, I think it's just its own thing. I don't think it connects to anything else. The Circle of the Moon, you're playing as Jonathan. Oh, sorry, not Jonathan Morse. Nathan Graves. And your buddy is a dude named Hugh Baldwin for some reason. And Nathan Graves just has the vampire killer because reasons, and you gotta fight Dracula. That's it. That's the plot of Circle of the Moon. Harmony of Dissonance is, okay, so 50 years after Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, you know, the one where the AVGN had that video. Yeah, that one, that's Simon's Quest. 50 years after that, a descendant from Simon's is going through the castle to possibly stop Dracula, but then you kind of realize, oh wait, no, we gotta find all of Dracula's pieces, just like Simon's Quests. You just gotta find them all. This is a Metroidvania, so it's not like hard. It's just part of you just exploring and you finding them all. So we can build Dracula, like put them together, and then defeat him, and then world saved.
Is it a horrible night to have a curse? Is it a horrible night to have a curse in that game?
No, thankfully not. Oh god, that would be so bad. I mean, in terms of the plot, all these games take place over the course of like a couple hours.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is really funny in the case of Aria of Sorrow, which takes place during an eclipse. Like, you know how long an eclipse is?
It doesn't last that long.
I don't, but I know it's short.
Yes.
And it's very funny because Aria of Sorrow is the one game that actually has the most in common with Symphony of the Night. There's more characters that you interact with. There's weapons that you get. You're not just restricted to using the whip. There's a lot of magic combinations. There's a dense amount of things you can do. And like I said, there's characters. There's like a plot going on. The more so that's pretty involved. It also, yes, is in its own separate timeline. Takes place in the year 2035 in Japan. So yeah, it's a big leap
Oh.
forward.
Okay.
And that game is all about the castle. The true castle is hidden within this. True Dracula's castle is hidden within this eclipse. And Soma Cruz turns out to be a vessel for Dracula. At least one of the possible vessels. Like basically, you think that this guy Graham is, because he ends up like having a lot of the same powers. It's like, oh, Dracula's gonna take him over, but you find out that no, the player character is actually the one to become the next Dracula, pretty much. So in order to stop that from happening, you got to go into this nightmare world and basically exorcise your demon, and then boom, it's all done. And that takes place over the course of an eclipse, which it's so funny to me because like you're introduced to like Graham, your antagonist, pretty early on in that game, and he's just kind of friendly to you and everything. And then 30 minutes, not even that, I guess 10 minutes later, you just get a conversation that's like, oh, Graham's like might be evil, right? And someone's just like, what? No, he seemed like a nice dude. Like, what are you talking about? And then like 10 minutes later, Graham like reveals, haha, I had this whole plan all this time. And someone's just like, what do you mean? We had a deep connection. Why are you doing this? I'm like, dude, just knew this guy. Like, what? What's going on? So yeah, it's like, oh. And it is just like that. Like, those are the 3 cutscenes back to back. Like, those are that they got the one cutscene, then another, and then the next is just Graham revealing he's evil. So like, okay, cool. I mean, I'll give them effort. This was on the GBA, and for 2003, we definitely at this point, it's like, okay, they know the limitations of like the GBA, and they can work around with it a little bit better. And it kind of shows, because Aria Sorrow, I think technically speaking, is definitely the most impressive, and also doesn't look as washed out as Harmony, which is nice. But it does kind of have its own little quirks about it. I'm not the biggest fan of kind of how progression's done in the game, but you know, it's basically just similar to most other Metroidvanias, except that some of the the soul system, which if you played Bloodstained, you're familiar with Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night.
Bloodstained.
Yeah. So you know in Bloodstained where. Yeah. So you know in Bloodstained when we would like defeat an enemy, you'd get like a shard and like, oh, I have a power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that system originated, or that kind of system originated in Aria of Sorrow. Except in Aria of Sorrow, there are way less useful ones than there are good ones. So most of the time you'll end up just getting ones that completely suck, or having to grind for specific ones to help you for certain areas, which is just not like that fun. But it's not as bad as the dang card system from Circle of the Moon, because there are still useful ones that you can get, and I do appreciate that there's a huge variety. Again, for a GBA game, it's kind of dense. Like, there are builds that you can do. There are definitely strategies that you can do for, like, if you want to specialize in like swords, or do you want to use the fists your advantage. Like, that stuff's pretty, like I said, like it's pretty dense, but there's part of the game that feels like it's kind of limited by being on the GBA. And I feel that most with like the story, because like this goes by like super fast, and a little bit of the mechanics too. To just feel like, man, I can't wait for them to get to the DS, because the DS games are just like everything that you kind of liked about Aria, but like better, just better.
I played Dawn of Sorrow.
Yeah, right. It's just like, so yeah, it's basically like proto Dawn of Sorrow, pretty much. It's like it's there. Like the seeds are definitely there. They're taking shape, but they're kind of limited by the hardware, a bit. Not by like so much, but a bit. You can feel like, if we had more buttons, then like this ability could just be mapped to that button, but it has to be a button combination, like that sort of thing. Kind of workarounds and things, but yeah. That's all I really have to say about the Castlevania games. I mean, I could go into a lot of detail, but there's so many. But like as a first impression from just playing these games once through, except for Harmony, which I did play twice. Oh, and Aria, I didn't play through the main twice, but I did do the Belmont playthrough because there is that. You remember in Symphony of the Night, you could play as Richter once you beat the game, and that just kind of became like a thing that some of the Metroidvania Castlevanias do, where they give you the option to play as the Belmont or a Belmont, if you haven't, or like do an alternate or play as just another character. Harmony did that too, but I didn't play as the other character. But for Aria, I did, and that was kind of fun playing as the Belmont in that game. Was really fun, though. If you thought Aria was short, that game is literally, you just go to like the 5 central bosses and then boom, you're done. There's nothing, it's nothing else. It's just, you can go to every area. There's nothing stopping you. There's actually nothing stopping you from just going to the final boss. But if you want to be more powered up, then you just fight all the bosses so you can be fully powered up and then do the final boss. But there's nothing stopping you from just going straight to the final boss. It's definitely the mode that feels like it's meant for speedrunners. Which, hey, you know, why not? But yeah. Man, I talked for a while. Wow.
Oh wow, yeah, plenty to talk about. So, do you recommend these games for anyone who've, casual or never played Metroidvania games, or is it only for fans?
Yes. I would say make sure to get this on the Advanced Collection, which is only $20, and I feel like for these 3 games, Dracula X, but don't play Dracula X. It's just the worst Rondo of Blood. Doesn't exist. Don't play it. It's kind of like they just threw that in there, so it seemed like you get a little bit more for your $20. But yeah, it's no. The main reason why I said this is because it added the awesome rewind feature, where you can just kind of hold like the left trigger and just go back. In case like you die, you can be like, nope, I didn't die. See, I can rewind time whenever I want, which definitely helped.
Good.
When I was getting through some of the BS parts in Circle of the Moon, it helped. So I think with that, and especially if you like Metroidvanias, yeah, no, pick this up. They all are definitely worth playing. Even Circle of the Moon, which like I didn't get the most glowing recommendation to it. But I feel like if you like Metroidvanias, maybe even harder Metroidvanias, then like, yeah, it's not like even the hardest thing I ever played. It's just, a little frustrating at times.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I actually played Circle of the Moon before. Fun fact though is that in Europe, it's simply just called Castlevania, making it one of the 4 games to just be called Castlevania in that country, including the NES one, Castlevania 64, this one, and also one of the PS2 Castlevania games. All of these are just called Castlevania.
Well, that's confusing.
I think Japan has it worse. I think the Japan title for Castlevania is used in like 10 games in Japan.
Yeah. Though, at least for some of them, it kind of makes sense because Castlevania 3 is a prequel and Super Castlevania 4 is a remake of the first one. So I'll give it that at least.
Wow,
yeah.
That's not gonna be confusing for any newcomer at all.
It's
wait,
okay.
I-
You have plenty of time to catch up because they ain't doing anything with Castlevania right now in terms of games. You basically just got. It's kind of like Mega Man. Look at all these Mega Man games that we have, and don't worry, there's not going to be any more. Pretty much,
Yeah.
they're
At
set.
At least the Mega Man games are numbered.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you get into all the. I was to say, wait, yeah, no, they all are. Except for ZX and ZX Advent, but you can kind of tell which one's the sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Man,
so-
numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. We're
Yeah,
gonna.
it's
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Dark.
no, you go on ahead.
No, I was just gonna say.
No, you go on ahead.
No, I was just gonna say we're gonna take a break. If there's if you're done, Ethan.
Oh yeah, I'm done. This was great. Play these games, especially if you like Metroidvanias.
Cool. Okay, so that was Gumshoe's picks for this episode. I think it's time to move on to DarkSparkish's pick. First off, I'm glad he made it. I'm sorry for about the time.
Yes,
zone mix-up.
It's okay.
It was cursed, or something. I don't know.
It's Halloween, so of course it is.
Okay, so we were, Gumshoe was talking about a few the Castlevania games on the Game Boy Advance, and I believe you're still your game you're going to talk about is also Castlevania.
Yes, that is indeed true. More precisely, it's of the classic variety and not the quote-unquote Metroidvania variety. Alright, so the games I'll be talking about are, well, there's one game mainly, is the PC Engine CD-ROM 2 system game, Castlevania Rondo of Blood, which was released in 1993 and has pretty much only been on that platform until in 2007 when it was re-released on the PSP as a part of the Castlevania Dracula X Chronicles. And then, yeah, well, that's pretty much the game. And it's, fun fact, a predecessor to the game Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So let's get started, shall we?
Go on.
So the story of the game is pretty much it's simple Castlevania endeavors. If you've played the classic Castlevanias, it's pretty much Dracula coming back to life and causing havoc. Richter Belmont has to, like everyone before him that bear the Belmont name, to put an end to Dracula and save his girlfriend Annette. Again, it's mostly typical Castlevania plot affairs. It feels the bare essentials to give the player a form of motivation to beat the game. But what matters more than the story in this case is the gameplay, and that's where the game really shines. So it plays more like the classic Castlevania games, more precisely the NES ones, such as mainly Castlevania 1 and 3. It's a more linear affair compared to games such as its Metroidvania sequel, Symphony of the Night and Beyond. You go from level to level, fighting many different enemies, from something small and or weak, as skeletons, zombies or bats, to tough monsters and beasts such as knights, golems, and even stronger skeletons. Fight big monsters at the end of each level, such as a wyvern or a werewolf, and find secret goodies along the way too. So Rondo of Blood kinda takes what the classic Castlevania games did, especially 3, and perfects it. The levels in this game, I have to say, are very good. I like almost every single one. They feature mostly good level design with thoughtfully placed obstacles, including enemies or platforming sections. That can be challenging to overcome, but are hardly frustrating. There may have been some frustrating parts that may have been due to maybe one instance of bullshit, and I wish invisibilities lasted longer, as there are times where I got hit by the same enemy again after touching it. But otherwise, deaths in the game were usually my fault. And a lot of the levels also have pretty cool set pieces too, such as in the first level, where you're fighting monsters in a burning town, while the banger that is Divine Bloodlines is playing. And another example is in the alternate level 4, I'll get to alternate levels in a bit by the way, where you can raft down a waterfall on a wooden platform fighting enemies on the way down. It's pretty cool, I must say. Additionally, the stages are filled to the brim with secrets. So Castlevania 3 did something where you had branching paths at the end of each level. But Rondo of Blood does that in a different way. So instead of choosing the path after beating the levels, you kinda have to find them on your own. And they're usually well hidden too, so you kind of have to be pretty observant when finding them. And along the way, there's also 4 girls you can save, which includes your girlfriend Annette, and also Maria Bernard, who you can also play as once you unlock her. The secrets are possibly some of my favorite things about the game. It really shows how much effort was put into it by the dev team, especially the 4 alternate stages, which added quite a bit of replay value after I played the game for the first time. You know, it just kind of fascinates me, really. So, my favorite stage in the game is probably the ghost ship. The atmosphere of the level, along with the challenge and the boss at the end, which is Death itself, who also appeared in the prologue to wreck your shit. And music sells the level for me. It's a pretty enjoyable level, to say the least. The bosses in the game are pretty good too. Even with sub-items, each one puts up a good challenge with tricky patterns to learn and test what you have learned on your journey, while also at times mixing up a bit with some quirky fights. They're more importantly fun to fight as well for the most part. The final boss, Dracula himself, spoilers, is kind of a pushover though. Once you get the timing down, he's nothing more than a miserable little pile of secrets and offers little in the way of a challenge compared to most of the bosses prior to him. This is also the first boss to Symphony of the Night, as many may know though. I mentioned earlier...
And man, if you thought the fight in Rondo Blood was easy, Symphony of the Night, oh boy.
Yeah, it's easier, definitely.
Hydro Storm, baby.
Yeah, but anyway, I mentioned earlier that you could unlock Maria as a playable character, so I'll talk a little about her. She's briefly put a pretty different character from Richter. Although she has lower defense, that's compensated by having lots of interesting abilities. She can double jump and has more control in the air overall too. She can roll by pressing down plus forward and jump, and slide just by pressing down and jump. Instead of using a whip and other weapons, she uses her animal friends as a way of attacking. Her default attack involves her sending out at most 2 pigeons that go a short distance before coming back to her. She can send them out while moving too, as opposed to standing still like Richter. Her sub-weapons are her other animal friends, such as her cat, which charges towards enemies, her turtle, which protects her from attacks, and a dragon, which flies towards enemies. The Item Crash version of her animal friends, Item Crash I'll get into in a bit, are bigger and more fierce versions of their cutesy selves, and some of which even cost much many more hearts than Richter's sub-weapons, especially a dragon which costs 50 hearts. She also has a hidden special move that's performed by pressing up, down, forward, and attack that lets her summon a guardian that can deal quite a bit of damage, and it costs no hearts. Overall, Maria is an interesting character to play as, though I still prefer playing as Richter because traditional Castlevania. So, now I'll actually get into the controls. The controls have a similar limits to the NES games, You can only whip in front of you, and you can't move in midair while jumping or falling. It's with these limits where you kinda have to plan your attacks. Although you lack the ability to whip in any direction or move freely left and right like in Super Castlevania 4, they regardless feel more fine-tuned and snappy than the NES game. And it's like the perfect middle ground between these two aforementioned games. I'd even say it's possibly my favorite controlling classic Castlevania game. Yes, even more so than Super Castlevania 4, which I actually played today too as a refresher. It actually even feels more refined than that game, despite not having these fancy cool abilities. Anyway, so, but although you're stuck to the more simple NES style controls, there are these small adjustments you can make that make these actions more satisfying. You can turn to the other side while jumping in a certain direction, crouch while you're whipping from a standing position or vice versa, and when you move left or right while jumping straight up, you can move slightly in these directions, which are good for getting close to a very close platform. You can also get on stairs in midair and drop down from stairs, which is also a Super Castlevania 4 thing, which is pretty cool, but you can also jump from the stair and then you can also jump from the stairs, which you can't do in Super Castlevania 4. And in addition to the traditional controls we're familiar with, Richter himself has some tricks up his sleeve, mainly a backflip, which is especially handy towards enemies that charge towards you. Just press the jump button twice and look at Richter flip like a badass. Although it's not something I use all the time, it's always cool whenever I use it. It's pretty handy. Also, like in every Castlevania, you have sub-weapons that all act differently, such as knives, crosses, holy water, or axes. They always come in handy when you're dealing with tough enemies or bosses, or even ones that piss you off. One example of using the axe, for instance, is when dealing with flying enemies that are pestering you. Each time you use a weapon, it costs you a heart, at least one heart, which doesn't represent your health, by the way. That's the life bar. That's what the life bar is for. Confusing if you don't know jack about Castlevania, I know. If you have enough hearts, you can do a powerful move that are effective against enemies or bosses, known as Item Crash, which is a new feature of this game. The move depends on the sub-weapon you have at hand, such as if you have Holy Water, you can summon a rain that nukes the screen, or surround yourself with axes if you're equipped with the axe. So it's pretty neat. Graphics. Graphically, this game is hands down one of the best looking games of the 16-bit era, and definitely the best looking Castlevania game of that time, beating out Super Castlevania 4 and the Genesis's Mega Drive's Castlevania Bloodlines. There's hardly anything for me to pick on here. The animations are all well animated and communicate well with the player when enemies are about to attack. It has a strong use of color, regardless if it's the enemies or the stages themselves, and the stages all stand out from each other. Maybe except for some that may blend a little thematically, mainly the dungeon levels, but otherwise, it's a great looking game. It also has anime-like cutscenes, which are in full motion, that also look nice, and are pretty well, and have pretty good voice acting, especially in the Japanese side. The English voice acting may be a little more stilted though, from the English patch I played of the PC Engine on my Mr. FPGA console. But the anime cutscenes are definitely neat, even if the animations are fairly limited. The sound I feel could have a little more impact, even if they're generated from the PC Engine sound chip. The voice samples, however, sound pretty bit crushed for the most part. There's definitely not of the best quality. Some sounds more or less than others, but the sound effects have a certain charm to them overall though. I kinda like the PC Engine sound. It's definitely I like all sound chip sounds. They all have their unique sound, you know. But one defining factor of Castlevania is the music, and the game delivers the goods on that front without a doubt. Because the soundtrack is awesome. Being a CD title, it uses Redbook audio, of course, which means composers didn't have to be limited by the capabilities of the PC Engine sound chip. Although there are a few songs that use the sound chip, mainly jingles, and like 2 themes, which are kind of the interlude theme before a boss theme plays, and a remix of the first boss theme from the first Castlevania. The soundtrack has a mix of early to mid 90s funk as well as orchestral in some songs. But it's the funk that matters, baby, and that shit slaps. It also throws other genres into the mix, such as Oriental, which sounds equally as good. The compositions are pretty energetic, and considering the obstacles Richter has to face, I think it's pretty fitting for the game overall. My favorite tracks in the game are the aforementioned Divine Bloodlines Stage 1 theme, Cross of Fear Stage 2 alternate, Cemetery Stage 3 alternate, Picture of a Ghost Stage 5, and Opal 13 Stage 5, which is Stage 5 alternate. So, with all that said, this game is fucking great. It takes the classic Castlevania formula and perfects it. The visuals, controls, music, level design, replay value, and enemies all contribute to a highly enjoyable game that needs to be played by any Castlevania fan. I had a good time with it, and I'm sure any Castlevania fan or even fans of classic games will too. I certainly recommend it. It's just an 8 out of 10 for me.
Man, and I agree with like everything that he says, for sure. I never played the PC Engine / TurboGrafx 16 version of the game.
Yeah, so I played the PC Engine version, which I have mentioned. I played on a little device called a Mister, which uses FPGA emulation, which is closer to real hardware than software emulation with the English patch. Though prior to this, I also played the PC Engine version through WiiWare. I never played
the version that most people, I think, if they played the game, would probably played it via that, where there was no patch, there was no English version. It was just strictly the Japanese.
Yeah.
I think for the longest time, that was really the only way you could play that.
Yeah,
unless,
I mean,
someone in at least in the States. I mean, I don't know anyone who had a TurboGrafx 16.
It was only released in Japan, also.
That too. So yeah, one of the best Castlevania games was region locked for a long time until the Wii generation.
Yep, but the international audience did get a game that is kind of an adaptation of Rondo of Blood, which released in 1995 called Castlevania Dracula X, also known as Castlevania Dracula XX in Japan, also known as Castlevania Vampire's Kiss.
Much better name.
Which again was released on the Super Nintendo of 1995. And I will briefly talk about it. So,
Go on.
So I'm going to be talking about it unscripted here, unlike Run of Blood, because to say it short, the game's not bad, but it's not good either. So starting off, the story is pretty much identical. Only difference is that Maria Bernard is this time just yet another damsel in distress. It apparently takes place 100 years after. I don't know. I think the story is somewhat similar. So I'll start off with the positives. The graphics in this game look great. In a few ways even better than the PC Engine version. Mainly in the first level where you have wavy fire effects in the background. And the game overall looks pretty damn nice, and the game looks pretty colorful. It you can definitely tell it apart from Super Castlevania 4, which was a 1991 Super Nintendo game. It looks nice overall, and the music's pretty good too. It's a nice Super Nintendo rendition of the PC Engine soundtrack. I wouldn't prefer it, but it's still a banger to listen to when playing the game overall.
And also people do actually prefer some of the songs with the SNES sound chip
Yeah.
over the main one. That's kind of interesting. Though I will say I think the one that I point to where like both versions sound really good to me is Opal 13. Like,
Yeah.
dang, even with the SNES, they still made that sound good.
Yeah, it's honestly impressive. But now let's get to the actual game. So, gameplay-wise, it plays similarly to Rondo of Blood, but unfortunately, where it falls flat is that the controls are actually slightly worse than the PC Engine version, which I don't know how they could fuck it up, but everything feels slower. So remember how fast and snappy the PC Engine version was? Well, Dracula X feels slower. You want to go from whipping while standing to crouching? Well, you have to be specific when you do that, and it's kinda annoying. You want to do the backflips feel a little more like you're on the moon compared to the original game, which makes fighting enemies that in the PC Engine game were not a problem to fight against, more of a problem, such as the soldier enemies, which were a piece of cake in the PC Engine release, are somewhat of a pain in the ass in the Super Nintendo game. I don't know how the fuck they could fuck that up, but they did. And what else to talk about? The game has all the levels and most of the bosses are pretty different from the Super Nintendo game, which is fine. But the level design is only that the level design is inferior. It feels more like there's more bullshit moments than the Super Nintendo game. And I also got more frustrated out of it than actually having fun, especially in the later levels. I didn't even beat it. I got to like the second last level and just gave up. And that's where the bosses, I guess at best they're fine, but otherwise they're kind of uninteresting. I guess the unscripted review of it didn't go as well as I was hoping, but overall, Castlevania Dracula X it's not a bad game, but it's not a good game either. I guess if you just want an extra dose of Rondo of Blood, you can probably play it. But, I mean, with that, you could probably be playing Symphony of the Night instead, or any other... Or, well, pretty much... or just play Castlevania Bloodlines. Kinda similar to Rondo of Blood, actually, and it's great. I much better play
bloody.
that. Yeah.
Like, they do not shy away from the blood in Bloodlines. Like,
Of
wow.
course not. Yeah. I mean, it is called Bloodlines after all, but anyway. Hell, even though Super Castlevania 4 is my least favorite of compared to Bloodlines and Round of Blood, I'd rather play that over Dracula X even. So overall, Castlevania Dracula X is nothing more than a curiosity. It is for some reason in the Castlevania Advance Collection, as the Gumshoe mentioned, but should you really play it? That's the question.
Granted, you can now rewind every time you die, but you're going to be rewinding like probably every, 30 seconds.
So yeah, Castlevania Dracula X is just Rondo of Blood, but inferior.
It's the inverse of Mega Man and Base, where when that got to the GBA, it somehow became worse than the SNES.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I agree though. Also with the Dracula X being just not that fun. It's interesting that you said that like for well, okay. I mean, how would you rank Super in like the list, or the tiers, I guess, of like classic Castlevania?
Let's see. Since I only think it's just good, it's not. I wouldn't say it's great, really. It's kind of overrated. I think people are mostly praising it because of its tone, and only because you can whip in 8 directions and control in the air.
It is definitely the most accessible.
I mean, yeah, I guess, but it also has some things that are cool on paper, but kind of jank, such as whipping on, such as you can swinging a whip on things. Sounds cool, but in practice, it's just awkward. Okay, but anyway, I'm not talking about Super Castlevania. Maybe B or A to get to the point.
Yeah, cool. All right. I was just curious. It was like, because like I also don't think that game. I mean, I would probably play 4 over any of the NES games, but yeah, I would definitely play Rondo anytime over 4, because yeah.
I actually prefer to play 3 over 4, to be honest.
Oh, 3's just too hard for me. Like I'm gonna fully admit, this just 3 is just like at some point I'm like, okay.
I mean, yeah, it's hard, but
Granted, though, I guess I could just play the Japanese version because it actually fixes the difficulty, as in enemies just don't suddenly do more damage because you're in a later level.
Yeah, I mainly played because of its awesome VRC6 music.
Oh yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's my opinions on Castlevania Run Blood and also X. Thank you very much.
Okay, so that was Dark's picks for this episode. I think that leaves me now. Okay, so for my pick, it's not a Castlevania game, but it's kind of fitting. Oh yeah, but it's fitting for the for this episode, I guess. If you follow me on Twitter, it's probably you probably know already what the game I'm talking about. And that game is Manhunt for the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC, released in 2003 by Rockstar Games and Rockstar North, who probably you've already know these developers as the guys behind the Grand Theft Auto games. And for this game, they decided to make a spin-off. It's, that is set in the GTA universe, but it is more it is pretty much just standalone when it comes to story. So there's not really any references aside from like a small one near the end of the game.
Interesting. I didn't even know it was tied to GTA at all.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's like one cutscene at the end that kind of reference the fact that it's set in the same universe. But when
is there like callback? Is it like a specific GTA? Okay, because like this was this made like after 3 or before 3?
It was after 3. The 3 was in 2001, and Vice City was 2002, I believe. And this one was made between 2003, so between Vice City and San Andreas.
Ah, all right.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah, they had time to make a spin-off game between the GTA games. For some reason.
Back when you could do that.
Yeah. Game development wasn't the same back then. So, for this game, you play as James Earl Cash, a man who was on death row for years before getting executed for his crimes, or so as the public believes. In reality, he was sedated and secretly relocated to an unknown location, where he wakes up to the voice of a deranged snuff film director who promises Cash his freedom by the end of the night in exchange for surviving the streets of Carcer City, which is filled with lunatics and criminals who want him dead, while killing them in style for his next violent snuff film.
What a plot.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So, for the gameplay, the game is a stealth action game in the same vein as like Splinter Cell or Metal Gear. But unlike those games, killing is encouraged, or to be more specifically, executing your enemies. You do that by ambushing them from behind and pressing the square while Cash is in his execution stance, which you can only do if he's holding a melee weapon, which you either find scattered in a level or collecting them from fallen enemies. The longer you hold the square button, the more violent the execution animation is shown, with each melee weapon having 3 different execution animations. But to be honest, they later become a little bit repetitive and they lose their charm. But like I said, they still the more you hold the square button, the more violent the execution animation that is shown. Okay, with the exception of some scripted events, exposing yourself in the open to enemies and fighting them head on is mostly discouraged. Like I said in the beginning, this is a stealth game in which you can hide in a dark corner. Any dark corner in the level, there's plenty of it in each level. And you lure enemies by making a sound before ambushing them from behind. Because if you confront them head on, you get exposed and you have to fight them, in hand-to-hand combat. But it is, like I said, it's discouraged, as you could expect from a stealth game. You also get access to firearms in later levels of the game, like pistols, shotguns, and sniper rifles. And while you can't execute enemies with them, you can easily mow them down as long as they're not armed with firearms themselves. In which case you must take cover, and the quicker you finish them, the better. The game about the longevity of this game. The game consists of 20 levels. They're called scenes. Each scene ends with 1 to 5 star rating. The more violent the executions are, the quicker you complete a scene. The higher the rating, the higher the rating, with the 4 star being highest rating in the normal difficulty and 5 on the hard difficulty. If you manage to complete the scene with at least 3 stars, you unlock a concept art in the special features menu. And if you completed 5 scenes in a row, you unlock a bonus scene. These are unrelated to the story and they're only there for fun. And aside from getting trophies for beating them, if you're playing the PS4 re-release like I did, they serve no purpose. Graphically, this game looks a little better than a PS2 GTA game, but not by much. Even for 2003 standards, this game kind of aged when it comes to that department. But it makes up for it by having a dark, grimy presentation, with almost every cutscene being stylized to look like it's been recorded on a busted handheld cameras from different angles. And with an ambient dark wave like soundtrack that I've heard being compared to the works of John Carpenter, so something like an 80s synthwave kind of soundtrack. The voice acting is mostly good. Shakespearean British actor Brian Cox does a great job portraying the deranged, bloodthirsty director. As for Cash and the main character, he barely speaks, but whenever he does, it's passable. There's not much when it comes to character, aside from like a couple instances in the game. So if I have to compare between like I said before, this is a stealth action game. But if I have to compare it to like a game like Splinter Cell or Metal Gear, it's or even like Hitman, it's pretty kind of basic and compared to these games. but it's still fun to play. Now we can't talk about this game, Manhunt, without mentioning the controversy behind it. This game
I would
was,
imagine there would be. I don't remember much of it, but I do remember there was something.
yeah, the game was criticized for its over-the-top violent nature before and after its original release, as evidenced by its gory execution mechanics. And it was banned in several countries, most notably Australia and New Zealand. And I believe in the UK, you can only buy this game if you're over 18 years old. And I believe there was also a murder case in the UK that was kind of related to this game, as it is. I think it was said that someone killed a teenager killed another teenager who happens to also own the game. But it was later revealed that it was the murder victim who owned the game, not the killer. And to be honest, this isn't the first time a Rockstar game got controversial. It was during the 2000s, during the craze of the video games being blamed for violence. Yeah, so it wasn't the first time.
Yeah, I feel like at this era, it was like almost every other Rockstar release had some sort of controversy around it.
Yeah.
It's like, didn't that also happen to Bully? Wasn't there some controversy with like Bully when that came out or something?
Yeah, because it apparently promoted bullying.
Yeah, I think that's why in the UK they changed the title to like Candace Edit, something like that. I don't know.
Which is Latin for dog eat dog.
Ah, okay. But that
Yeah,
but that game is T-rated. It's not M.
yeah, I know. But it's just like
Well,
Bully
either way-
is to me, Bully seemed like Rockstar's answer to all the people that are like, man, this game's too violent. It's like, okay, we'll make a T-rated version, and it still gets controversy.
Yeah.
I thank God for Postal 2 for making fun of this, where the postal guy goes around with a petition to make politicians play video games, and he goes like, "Would you like to sign my petition? Sign this fucking petition."
Unironically, one of my favorite moments in Postal 2. just going around being like, okay, please sign.
Sign this fucking petition.
But yeah,
It's fun
Manhunt is something that I've definitely seen in action before. But I've never played it for myself. But I definitely know of it. Wasn't there also like a sequel or something?
Yeah.
There was Manhunt 2,
Yeah, it was
which also came out on the Wii for some reason.
yeah,
Whoa.
in 2007. And I believe the UK or the European version was also was heavily censored, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I kind of would imagine.
Yeah.
Especially for UK, yeah.
Yeah, and I believe also in Australia and New Zealand. If I'm not mistaken, the first Manhunt in New Zealand, it is considered an offense if you own the game. Can you believe?
Wow.
Can you believe that?
What? You own Manhunt? Ah, you're a fucking twat.
Ugh.
So, and instead of video nasties, we have video game nasties. Okay.
Yeah, it's much worse in Australia and New Zealand. Their game rating is super strict.
I think that Australia is the worst offender, though.
Australia, man, I feel so bad for people in Australia who not only have to deal with Australian game rating system, but also have to deal with the prices.
Oh, Are they this is kind of new to me.
Almost like double the amount in like for USD anyway. Like a $60 game is almost double.
Oh wow. That's kind of.
I know. It's like, why?
That kind of sucks.
Well, for more, you get less.
Yeah, pretty much. So we've mentioned. Oh yeah, this is something funny when it comes to banning games and stuff like that. I don't know about the original release. I think. Oh yeah. In our local stores, the game didn't get censored. We were mostly playing pirated games, so we didn't officially get it in 2003. This game, Manhunt, the original one. But for the PSN re-release, we got it in our PSN stores, alongside Bully and Red Dead Revolver, but not the GTA games. So it's okay to show. It's okay. I think for our standards, it's okay to show violence and blood and gore, but God forbid you show booba.
Oh man, no, that is an offense.
Yes.
How dare?
Yes, the GTA games are banned where I live, officially at least. But it's kind of pointless now, since the PS2 re-releases on the PS4 PSN store they have been pulled out now, since the definitive edition remasters are coming now.
Well, man, now that's a whole can of worms that I don't think we have time to go into for this podcast.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that's a.
Yeah. So
let's start talking about it. Okay, I'm just kidding. No, it's not.
Yeah. So anyway, now to extend the podcast for another hour.
Yeah. So let's see. The games. I don't know if it's available on the. I think it's available on the Xbox Live. On Xbox Live.
It is, and it's also on Steam. At least the first one is. I don't know about 2, but I do remember the first one being on Steam. I think I actually have it. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I do.
Yeah, the second one.
Yep, I do.
Okay. The first one is available on Steam.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
I've yet to play it though, but yeah, I do have it.
Yeah, it's also the version I played. Like I said, it's the PS4 port re-release on the PSN store. It comes with the native widescreen support, so that's neat. And also trophy support, which is something that PlayStation introduced when they started briefly releasing PS2 games. So yeah, at least have an incentive to play this game to play this game on a PlayStation if you want.
Okay, I know this might seem like a dumb question, but you know what? Since we were talking about like all the controversy and stuff around it, do you think Manhunt is a game that would be made in like today? Or do you just think it's kind of just one of those games that, this kind of could have only come out of like that time?
You know what? I'd say the latter. I want to lean on the latter, because I don't know if you've heard of this game. What is it called? The one that was released on Steam that caused a lot of controversy.
Hatred?
Hatred. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was like quick. That was
name's
quickly
not
pulled.
important.
That was like very quickly pulled, and at least that one of at least I think got removed from Steam, and they got put back on or something like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
No, that.
Yeah, but I think Hatred is a little bit worse, because in that game you kill innocent people, and Manhunt you kill deranged psycho killers who are after your ass. So
I, to be honest, remember the frozen cereal YTP more than the actual game.
Exactly. Yes. That was
Oh wait, I think I've actually seen that. Oh wait, yeah, no. Yeah, oh my
It goes
wow.
like, my name's not important, but what is important is my name.
Oh man, that's a classic.
Yeah, the only good thing that came out of that game.
The memes.
The memes. The memes, Jack.
The memes. The memes are a part of my DNA.
Why didn't you save those memes?
How about piece of shit? Is that also a meme?
How about full of shit?
We could extend that by an hour just rambling on about the Metal Gear Rising
Okay,
memes.
now for the hour of the podcast where we just make meme references.
I think they made a rumor that there might be that they might remaster that game.
Honestly, that could be pretty fun. Like, imagine Manhunt, because like your biggest, or what do you remember? You were saying your biggest problem with it was like mainly control wise, right?
Yeah,
Or not control wise, but yeah.
Yeah, it's not horrible. It's a little better than a GTA game, but
It feels aged is like the thing. So yeah, imagine them actually making like maybe not like a full-on remake, but like a remaster and touch up the controls a bit more. I bet you a lot of people would totally buy that.
yeah. Overall, I'm gonna be honest. When it comes to Manhunt, the game kind of showed its age a little bit. But it's overall, I had fun re-experiencing it, because I played it back in the day on PS2, but this is the first time I'm playing in the PS4 release, which was on my backlog for a while. Yeah, it was fun experiencing this game again. I'd say yeah, it is I'd say if you're curious, yeah, I recommend this game. It's fun time. As long as you don't, as long as you know, don't mind the violence, you're gonna have some fun with this one.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
yeah. So I guess that's it for our picks for this episode. It was fun having you guys once again.
Of course.
Thank you.
So before we end this episode, where can we find you on the internet? Let's start with you, Gumshoe.
You can find me at Gumshoe Gamer. Literally type that into probably anything. I'm mainly active on Twitter nowadays, and I stream every weekend, or not weekend, sorry, weekday night over on Twitch. Currently going through Dead Rising 2 off the record and doing a randomizer Pokemon Soul Silver run right now. So yeah, I mainly stream nights, and I mean nights, I mean late nights. So if you're a night owl like me, then probably say hi.
Okay, so
All right.
What about you, Dark?
Alright, so this is Dark here. I'm coming at you from London, actually. You can find me on Twitter by typing in at DarkSparkish. And I also occasionally make YouTube videos, or YouTube poops, I mean, on YouTube, which is just DarkSparkish, by the way. I'm pretty much DarkSparkish everywhere you'll find me, so just feel free to talk with me or on Discord or whatever. So yeah, that's pretty much what I can say.
Okay, so I guess that's it for this Halloween themed official I should probably say post Halloween edition of this baby podcast, which happens to be the 10th episode of this show. I can't believe it's been running for 10 episodes.
We did it, guys. We got to the double digits.
Yep. Cool. So, I think that's it for this episode. Until next time, this is your host Serial K and his guests. Take care. Bye.
Nice.
Awesome.